And welcome folks to the daily space weather video. Looking at the sun here at 193 angstroms, this is 9 hours and 15 minutes of activity. Large coronal hole right in the Earth facing zone right now. Coronal hole wind stream expected from that in about 2 days. Another large coronal hole north of the equator also rotating in, as well as some activity rising. Let's take another look. And here's the 304 angstroms view. Lots of filaments there in the southeast, down in this region. Also, it is noteworthy that this coronal hole, the one that's facing the Earth right now, is so defined that it's obviously visible, even at 304 angstroms. Not something that we normally see. And here's the colorized magnetogram. You see no real field activity going on there, except for this kind of these two basically big stripes of coordinated magnetism there. Otherwise, very low solar activity. Before we cover some more data, we're going to talk about funding the page, the YouTube channel, and the organization in general. If you'd like to support the channel and you enjoy the content, please become a patron. Also, you could donate on PayPal, or you could check out the Hemp Lucid Spaced Out campaign. Links below the video to that, the Spaced Out campaign specifically designed and formulated for our spaced out viewers. So support the channel that way if you are in the market for CBDs, please. And here's the real-time solar wind. Phi angle at about 158 degrees right now. Doesn't look like a current coronal hole magnetic connection, but we just came off of one. This appears to be one right in this area here, as well as sputtering connections in this region. About 6 hours ago or so, solar wind density 3.96 protons per cubic centimeter, solar wind speed 346 kilometers per second. Solar minimum solar wind. And here's the other spacecraft, the ACE data, looking corroborative. 10.7 centimeter radio flux is off its lows, but still very low at 67 as solar minimum drags on. Next, hey, we got your magnetosphere movies right here. See what I'm talking about there? We see a big density spike there on the magnetosphere movie. If you know what's good for you, let this play through 4 hours of data here. Let all this play through here as this odd density spikes be happening there. There we see some lower density toward the end. I'm going to rock this back to the beginning here before I head back to Branks. There's a big density spike right there. Not particularly showing up in the solar wind data. And let's move on to the pressure. There's the pressure. We'll rock that back and let that play all the way through. There you see a manifestation of that density spike in terms of the pressure. Again, 4 hours of data. We try to archive this daily. As this data cannot be accessed in archive format, we're hoping University of Michigan changes that soon. There's that big density spike as a pressure wave goes right through the planet and indeed your head. Let's take a look at it from the geospace ground magnetic perturbations, and once again we see a big pulse of current going through the planet. And this is based on the University of Michigan geospace model, the space weather modeling framework. Let's look at that from the polar view also after I rock this back. There's that global spike. Occurring around 6:42 UTC. And we'll just take a look at that portion on the polar view here. And there's that spike. You can see the obvious spiral type pattern here, especially on the south pole. Moving on. KP index is at 1. And here's the ionosphere map. And we've animated that to satisfy your ionosphere desire for animations. And there's that ends at 9:15 UTC. And there's the current situation, looking pretty normal in the ionosphere. GOES X-ray flux still flatlined. GOES electron flux here in nominal ranges. Let's talk about conjunctions. You're seeing one before your very eyes. That is Venus and Mars right there. Conjunction going on today as Venus swings past. GOES magnetometer is still looking very choppy, and we're not expecting to see this smooth out anytime soon, as there is a heliospheric current sheet boundary crossing about to happen. We'll show you the visual in a minute. So here's the Gong 2 data. This is 1 hour 12 minutes old, and you can see the Earth's field force line is within about 24 hours of moving across to the other polarization portion there, shown in from red to green. In other words, the field line will snap across, and so we're expecting to see continued choppiness in the GOES magnetometer as a result of this, although we won't see wild swings, as you see dense bunched up plasma in the corona here regarding both heliospheric current polarity boundaries. Enough said about that. Here's a farther away view here showing the Venus-Mars conjunction. And there's where things will be in 1 week, right around new moon. Here's a current star chart. Deneb is on its way to set. And the moon is reaching its apex. Let's look at more data. But first, let's look at Zooniverse.org. Now, here's a galaxy that I classified earlier today. I know it's looking pretty odd. Don't freak out. It's not the Borg. It's just visual artifacts probably caused by a bright foreground object, similar to what we would call lens flare. Anyway, check out the Zooniverse.org Galaxy Zoo project, as we need citizen scientists to classify galaxies. Computers can't do this. You could get published in a scientific paper if you set yourself an account. So check out Zooniverse.org, the Galaxy Zoo project. Zooniverse.org, the largest citizen science project in the world. We still need a couple million more galaxies classified here, folks. And this lends to real astronomy, as folks need to know which places to study. That's an interesting looking galaxy. Will you be the citizen scientist to classify that one? It's an earthquake rundown. 5.3 in the Solomon Islands. This one happened about 21 hours ago, at least at the time of this broadcast. And if you're wondering, folks, we broadcasted at 5:29. Actually, I recorded the video at 5:29. Here's a 4.5 in Peru. We see a rash of quakes in western South America, as we've been warning that area for over a week, as they've been seeing deep quakes there. Here's a 4.5 at Algeria. Not the most common spot for a quake there on the southern Mediterranean. How about a 4.3 at Japan? Very deep quake here at Fiji, 540 kilometers. Watch our video yesterday. We cover a giant field of pumice in the ocean just west of that location. Here's a 4.5 at Japan. Here's a 4.6 at Japan. So we see a little swarm there of fairly mild quakes, especially for Japan. 4.6 at Peru. As the warning for South American quakes does not expire, here's a 4.1 at the British Virgin Islands. 5.0 at Japan. I believe that's the largest quake of the past 24 hours. 4.6 at Argentina. That one's at depth. And that's about the location where we've been warning. Right there in the crotch of western South America. That's where I would expect a larger earthquake to happen, at the surface. Here's a 4.8 at Chile. And another 5.0 there at Japan. And a 4.7 at the India Ocean Triple Junction. Check it out. And here's the pressure map. We're going to let that play for about 24 hours. as we talk about Leonardo DiCaprio, who is actually on windy.com today. He actually used the carbon monoxide map to suggest that the Brazilian wildfires are caused by global warming or human carbon emissions or some other nonsense, as he flies all around the world on a private jet and knows absolutely nothing about atmospheric physics. Hey Leo, you want to come on the smAsho? We'll be more than happy to allow you to try to convince me as well as our viewers of all the BS that comes out of your mouth as you create billions of tons of carbon flying around on a private jet. Well done. Not too smart. Time for the volcano rundown. Karimsky, exploding, producing a 15,000-foot ash plume. Volcano, exploding, producing a 6,000-foot ash plume. Popocatépetl, 19,000-foot ash plume and explosions there. Exploding also is Sabancaya, 23,000-foot ash plume there. And please do not attempt to do a backhand spring over Nevados de Chilean, as it has been erupting on and off and producing a sporadic weak puff emission. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance, folks, as astrophysics gets rewritten before your very eyes. And we try to convince people of the real science and to abandon all the nonsense. Here are the jet streams in the Western world, courtesy of Null School. Some extremely odd meridional jet stream flow. Portions of the jet stream go in the wrong direction here in the southern hemisphere, as well as very wide, ultra-strong jet streams, injecting cold air where it doesn't belong, injecting warm air where it doesn't belong. We're going to have a fall-like weekend here in the eastern U.S. I'm in the mid-Atlantic states, if you weren't aware. And here are the jet streams on the eastern world. We'll let that animation play for one moment. And we're going to talk about climate change, fraud, nonsense, Dr. Tim Ball, climate hack Michael Mann, and more. We'll leave you all kinds of links, so don't go anywhere. But first, we're going to show you a value-added service, as we do most days. AccuWeather.com's Doppler radar. You zoom out so you can see the timestamps. And I'm having a problem scrolling today. There we go. And we see the Midwest getting hit with some more severe storms, as they have been most days throughout the entire year. Here's your high-res water vapor map. We see a large mass of dry, cold air being pulled down from Canada via a big curve in the jet stream, which we just showed on Null School. And it looks like there's some serious activity forming down here in Texas, and it looks like an atmospheric river is about to form. Let's zoom in on that spot. And there's that large convergence there over southern Texas. I would note that none of those parallel lines are chemtrails, and that human beings have no capacity to control the Earth's weather. At least not on any major scale. Only on a tiny, tiny scale, folks. Because geoengineering does work on a tiny scale. And on a big scale, space laughs at you. Let's talk about the best news I've heard in a long time. Dr. Tim Ball wins his 9-year court case versus climate hack Michael Mann, the progenitor of the hockey stick graph. Let's show you the real data, Tim Ball's data versus Michael Mann's data, as Michael Mann's data tries to cover up the medieval warm period. Now, this is commonly known with people who watch channels like ours. We'll probably get demonetized for this, which is why you should try to support us on Patreon. Anyway, there are the two graphs, and you can see Michael Mann's graph completely eliminates the medieval warming. Here's the actual data on the past 1,100 years, and here's Michael Mann's version. Well, guess what? Not only did Michael Mann lose the case, the Supreme Court of British Columbia not only dismissed Michael Mann's defamation lawsuit, but also awarded full legal costs. To quote Tim Ball, Michael Mann should be in state pen, not at Penn State. Now, if you want to go visit Michael Mann's websites, we've got links to those in the description also. Check it out. Here he is. He's a, quote, distinguished, end quote, professor of atmospheric science. Apparently searching for funding. which is why he's going to lie to you and doctor the data. So anyway, links to his own site, as well as, to the Penn State Department of Meteorology and Atmospheric Science. If you want to send Mr. Mann an email congratulating him on his failure in court, well, there's the email address. Now, we would never encourage our viewers to do something like that, but there are a bunch of links associated with this human. So today's the day to celebrate, as the phony global warming CO2-induced junk science is spiraling the drain. And for that, we thank you. We're going to integrate the "that is a donkey" and "that is a sinkhole" section as we censor ourselves due to Google's censorship. Speaking of Google, were you aware that it's not our favorite company? Now, a lot of people really like Google, and they think it's a great software manufacturer. A lot of people aren't aware that Google owns the Android operating system, and that Google owns YouTube, and that Google owns the Motorola Corporation, and has bought up practically all of its competition. If you think YouTube is paying us for these videos because you're seeing advertisements, well, I've got news for you. Let's define a term here, courtesy Merriam-Webster. Liability. Big tech is not an asset to mankind. Big tech is a
liability.
Now, liability is defined as the quality or state of being liable, like when things are your fault, something for which one is liable, especially a thing like an obligation or a debt, as we consider suing big tech companies every day on this channel, and one that acts as a disadvantage or a drawback. Yes, because big tech's trying to break the internet. And here's a news flash for you, big tech. You can't break the internet, but the internet can break you. So please like and subscribe our YouTube channel, as it's been throttled all year, and we've been stagnating at 1,350 or so subscribers. We're all the way up to 1,377. Shout out to David Dubine of Adapt 2030. Check out his channel also. One of our contributing contributor. Please share our videos on social media, such as Facebook. We put them up there every day, facebook.com/smAsho, as well as on Gab. As well as on Twitter. Here's Twitter, twitter.com/smAsho. You can share our videos there, as well as on Gab. We try to interact there a little bit, although it's taken a little while to get anything going on Gab. Also on Minds, minds.com/smAsho, the open source social media. That is the future of social media. We're approaching 500,000 views with only 709 subscribers. So please check it out, minds.com. Again, open source social media. It won't shadow ban you. It won't try to deplatform or deperson you. Shout out to Bill Ottman. Minds.com, the future of social media. Not a desiccated, decaying zombie corpse like things like Facebook and Google and Twitter and Apple, etc. So again, check out our older videos. For instance, we've got one with a long-form discussion with David Dubine of Adapt 2030 right here. So check that out. Just uploaded 2 days ago. So it's quite current. Again, please support us on Patreon, as YouTube pays us precisely nothing for these videos. YouTube and Google are huge scams, and Google actually shakes us down for money. So you may think that we're getting paid to make these because you see advertisements. Well, that's just not the case. And thanks for tuning in, Smash team. Again, we will be making Smash streams again in the near future. And by the way, stay tuned for a bonus feature, which is the sun in 171 angstroms, our favorite star for most of us. I mean, your local yellow dwarf, how can you go wrong? It's my favorite view. There is a giant plasma filament up here in between these coronal holes, which could be released at any moment. And there is actually some activity rising over here in the east. You can see that right there on the left of your screen there. But no apparent sunspots even on the far side of the sun. So solar minimum continues. The planet is not hot, as things like tornadoes and horrible hailstorms are caused by cold air, not by warm air. So don't believe the nonsense. Check the links in the description below the video. And remember, when you're staring at the sun, don't drink. And if you drink, stare at the sun anyway. Use the proper instruments like the STO, and don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, May the solar wind be at your back, and the atherosclerosis absent from ye veins.